Hi, this is Karthik and Mani. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Zenbridge Inc. Today we have Hari Sivaprakasam, who's the COO at Sunland Logistics and a very good friend of mine. Hari, thanks a lot for doing this. This is long overdue, right?
Yes, absolutely, Karthik, and it's so great to connect with you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, great to have you, Hari. Hari, could you begin by giving us a brief introduction about yourself? How did you get started with supply chain as a career, and what is it that you do at Sunland today?
Sure, Karthik, absolutely. So like Karthik said, I'm responsible for operations at Sunland Logistics Solutions. So basically, I'm born and brought up in India and did my master's in the US and did an industrial engineering program with focus on supply chain. So really, really started falling in love with the global logistics, the variations of what happens in the movement of products across the world. Anyway, as I was a student, so everyone was focused on manufacturing at that point. Now I'm talking about 20 years earlier. There was a lot of focus on manufacturing and process optimization. I found supply chain to be more enthralling and more interesting as a field of work. So I can say that I didn't fall into this by mistake. I kind of totally planned coming into supply chain by kind of going through education on that too. But really, for some of the might be younger people listening, Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta has a real good supply chain program in industrial engineering, and we have the Logistics Institute there. They're under a different name now. So interacting there and meeting with people and business people really piqued my interest. So that's how I got into this field. I know it's a little bit of a longer explanation. That's how I got in. And I worked with a global 3PL, a company by the name UTI for a major portion of my career. UTI was a great company, global logistics company. We did warehousing, air freight, ocean freight, brokerage across the globe. Had some real good strategic customers where we service them across the globe, right? And smaller customers too. Great growth opportunity, afforded me the opportunity to work in North America, Asia, a lot of projects in kind of Europe and Africa as well. Just gave a good global understanding of how this worked across different industry verticals. We service consumer retail, automotive, industrial type customers, pharmaceutical, and we even had a cruise vertical. So we were in all kinds of different verticals and different customer bases. So gave a real good opportunity to understand and appreciate the spectrum of global supply chain across different industry verticals and different product offerings. So that's where I spent most of my career. And I've been with Sunland for the last 5 years now. One of the things that we have seen lack in the US market now is really the customer service when it came into warehousing and distribution. So Sunland is a North America focused company. We are privately held. We are growing and growing pretty fast. And so we deal with value added logistics activities, right? So again, the main verticals are consumer retail, e-com, automotive, industrial, and then chemical, and a lot of heavy offerings on the IT side, which is where we partner with you guys. That has been a great experience, right? We have done a lot together. Yeah. But supply chain IT, it's not the flow of products anymore, but really the flow of information, giving visibility to customers. We have enjoyed the relationship with Vitale and the work that we have been able to do together. So that's where Sunland focuses on, on those verticals, executing some, value add complex warehousing opportunities, logistics activities for our customers, and really kind of making sure the IT portion of it is strong as well. So that's kind of what we do with Sunland, and I'm glad to talk about more of that through the course of this conversation.
Thanks, Hari. So at Sunland, I know, it's a third-party logistics. One of the things that I kind of noticed immediately when I met you for the first time was the fact that you were so keen on IT, right? Because I have met some industry people, but the importance that you place on IT, I found it pretty fascinating. I don't think you were considering that as something that was complementing supply chain. I think you wanted to focus on it as a primary offering of Sunland. So I just want to understand, how did you arrive at the thought process? I mean, at that idea. I mean, I know everything runs based on IT today, but considering IT as a primary service, I kind of found it very interesting when I spoke to you.
Yeah, Karthik, thanks for asking that question. That's kind of like a passion of mine, and I'll tell you why. Because when I first got into this field as an young engineer, one thing that always frustrated me was, we'll have a project timeline, we'll try to get some projects going for whatever customer, right? Large customers. And whether it is from our side as a service provider on the logistics side or the customer side, if you look at the project plan, IT will always be on the critical path, and it will probably almost be the one that required the longest time frame. And more often than not, had most of the problems too. So, for me, it was frustrating, because when you think of IT, technology should be an enabler. Technology should not be slowing you down, right? And part of that was, why is that? Why all of these ERP implementations and WMS implementations were almost always a difficult thing to do, and very challenging in given the overall scheme of projects. So that was kind of like a frustration as an young engineer coming into this field, and seeing our customers struggle through that as well. Okay, so that's where it started. And then the second thing is, you look at analysis of business. A lot of things are happening in a supply chain, and every time you want to kind of make a decision, you see people kind of analyzing multiple spreadsheets, trying to come up with information, and by the time you make a decision, it's too late, because that window has passed, and now you're in a reactionary mode versus being proactive. So that's kind of what I have observed, at least personally. Somehow, social media and all the other places, IT has like evolved so fast. But when it comes to manufacturing and supply chain, it's kind of been slow. So that's kind of what we wanted to change. So all along, I would be like, if I were to do this, I'll do this differently. So as I kind of went through my career and grew, and we had opportunities to do things, and then with Sunland now, we are very agile in our decision making. We want to kind of really listen to customers and make things happen. So we wanted to change the playing field here. So as a service provider, physically executing. Karthik, I think my AirPods might have given away.
That's okay. You can just continue from where you left.
Is it still audible on my side, Karthik?
Yeah. This is fine. Yeah.
So we'll continue. So from a Sunland perspective, one of the things that we try to do was, okay, so we're going to service our customers on the physical side of it. We got to execute our distribution operations, whether we are shipping e-com to end consumer, or we are supplying an automotive line with just in time or just in sequence. We got to get that portion done. So customers hired us to do that. That's the bread and butter of what we do, and we need to do that. But where do we add value? Where do we add value is helping our customers understand what's happening with their supply chain. All right. And what that means is, what are some of the failure points? What can we do to be proactive about it? Because in the supply chain, people end up spending 80% of their time on 10 to 20% of things that go wrong, on exceptions, and everything else, works out fine. So we want to make sure that we focus on the exceptions. So we really wanted to bring visibility to our customers with what's happening. This is your business. This is what is happening on the inbound side. This is what is happening on the outbound side. This is the planning piece of it. And make sure that the information is readily available so they can make business decisions. And so they can optimize their material flow. So they can reduce their total landed cost of logistics. So that's kind of where our focus is, right? So the passion comes from the fact that IT is an inhibiting factor in manufacturing and logistics. And we want to change that. And we want to make it easy. And we want to make IT as an enabler. So for us, the key is not only on the physical execution, how do we give information to our customers on a proactive basis so they can actually make smart business decisions to reduce cost, improve cash flow, and improve service levels and quality to their end customers. So that's really where the passion comes from. And that's where Sunland as a company is also heavily focused on.
Right. I know I remember one of the first, I think it was the very first project we collaborated together was moving Sunland to the cloud. And I remember you telling me that you wanted a world-class infrastructure where things are on the cloud. I think that was the first, that was kind of the first piece of the puzzle. And then from there on, we worked on several aspects of IT. So could you talk about some of the initiatives we have inside Sunland? I know we, first, the very one of the biggest projects we undertook was moving Sunland to the cloud. That's well, established now. We have things like 10D KPI. I know you put a lot of emphasis on having visibility and insights. So I know you guys have the 10D KPI initiative. So could you talk about the visibility and some of the initiatives that offer visibility and insights, Hari?
Yeah, Karthik, I think you're taking me down the memory lane again, back a few years. So let's talk about the back end, right? And wanting to move to the cloud. I think you as an as an IT professional and a business owner, you realize that sometimes people get to see the fun part of it. That's the front end. They see the applications they use, and people want to, even our team members, they want to make sure that's working, where customers get value. But oftentimes the unsung heroes are what happens in the back end, right? Is the foundation strong? Even if you're raising the building, the foundation is beneath the ground. But if the foundation is not strong, then the structure is not going to be going to be stable. So we have to focus on the foundation. So part of the passion on the back end side is just to make sure that our underlying infrastructure and underlying security is strong. Especially in today's business environment, I think security has become such a big focus area. Even like U.S. federal government companies and military is getting attacked by cyber attack. So it's a big deal. So we want to make sure as a business we not only protect ourselves but protect our customers too. So part of that is creating a very stable backend infrastructure is something that we really wanted to focus on. So that's where we collaborated on the first project, was how do we take that to what best in class looks like, being fully on the cloud. So we are not managing physical machines, right? So, and then the security that goes along to your servers, and also security on your end user devices, and how fast do you set something up? Business is growing fast. You want to set up an environment, you want to get things going. Right now, it's a matter of a few minutes to make that happen for our backend team. Whereas in the past, it would have taken a few weeks to even a few months to get the required infrastructure to get things up and running. So I think part of the passion around the backend is to make sure the foundation is strong, right? And that's what people see less of, but that's where you need to be the strongest. So their agility and the speed is a key factor. Security is a key factor. And handling quick business growth, that is important. So you talked about the cloud. Cloud is one portion of it from a data server perspective. But then how you link up your sites, how you link up your locations. I remember a time people were like so focused on service providers and what kind of connections you had. Even as a global company, for me, we'll be kind of forced to use one data bandwidth provider across the globe. And we'll be trying to look for these guys in like Asia, in some places, which there might be good in the US, and you don't find that, right? And it takes a lot of money to make it happen. But we kind of are more service provider agnostic from that perspective. So we wanted to have like an software driven wide area network, So we wanted to make sure that we are service provider agnostic from that perspective. How does that infrastructure look like? So we are more an SD-WAN company combined with cloud and the protection around that. So anyway, I think working with you guys there, I know your team worked very hard on making that happen. And as you saw during that project, like any company, as we started doing that, we started opening up a can of worms because we wanted to fix things as we go, right? That was a great process, Karthik, because what it did was it not only helped us to take our backend to a good kind of, I would say, best in class infrastructure, if that's the right way of putting it, I guess. But that's constantly changing though. But on the other hand, it also started bringing out the deficiencies in our process, which we worked together to, as we identified each one of those, we tried to find fixes for that too. So I think it was a great exercise to go through. But now the key is sustaining it, because things are changing on a daily basis, and we want to make sure that as a company, we stay ahead of the game from a security perspective. So anyway, I hope it gives a little bit of flavor for why it was important. We wanted to make sure the backend is strong. I'll tell you, if it is not too much discussion on this topic, in a long time, in the last few years, customers are asking us, typically they'll ask about service offerings and how do you do things from an operational perspective. Now there are a lot of discussions around what is your IT security protocols, how are you protecting our data? I mean, that's a mainstream topic for operations people too, right? So we just wanted to be a bit ahead of the game on that. And it's paying off dividends for us now, because as we grow, we have the peace of mind that our foundation is strong. Now we got to continue to work on keeping it strong, obviously, but at least we have made a big transformation as a company from that perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the cloud was a fun project. I think also we took a couple of hits, but still managed to kind of get up and get going. So I at least personally learned a lot and thoroughly enjoyed the ride. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to understand from your point of view was the importance of having insights. I know I find it very remarkable that you guys still define the metrics upfront for every project you start, and then you get it implemented, and it's on the 10D KPI portal. So I first thought it was kind of a crazy initiative when you guys began, to be honest, because for every customer you have to define the metrics, you have to put up the charts, and every startup is a 10D KPI project, right? So could you talk about what 10D KPI is, and why do you think it's very crucial? I know you've been a key driver of the project.
Sure. So we started off this conversation. We talked about backend, and then we talked about what's important to business, right? We talked about having information to make business decisions.
Yeah.
And the name of the game here is how can we be proactive instead of being reactive, because things change so fast in supply chain, and you want to connect the dots of what is happening and have it available readily so we can make decisions, right? So anyway, let me focus on at least one piece of it for our strategic customers from the distribution or warehousing operations we run, what we do with KPIs. So Karthik, this is where, for the longest time, right, all of those KPIs you will see in most businesses is Microsoft Excel, right? That's the most powerful tool. We dump data from whatever system, people run pivot tables, charts, and you come up with beautiful graphs, and you have trend charts or whatnot. So, okay, that's good. That's powerful, still good for data analysis, right? But by the time you complete this analysis, we have customers where product is coming from overseas, might be from Asia somewhere, comes in, some value add happens here. And then you have different types of omni-channel streams where the product go to the end consumer, or we might be supplying a line to a manufacturing company. A lot of variables are there. By the time we do these crunchings and we have the information available for a business review once a month or whatnot, it's all rear view mirror at that point. You're just talking about what happened in the last month versus what am I doing about it today or tomorrow or this minute. So we wanted to change that. And part of that was you could do it a couple ways. A lot of companies have started using BI tools like Cognos or Power BI or whatnot. You go in. Those are also glorified spreadsheets. Instead of spreadsheet, now you have tables to play with, and you're training your team on it. What we really wanted to do is you take every business for us is different. That's a fun thing about being in logistics. Different companies do things differently, even within the same vertical. So what are the measures of that business? That's important. So what we want to do is any business that we start with customers, we sit down and say, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? What is the value stream that we are trying to deliver for this customer? And how do we measure whether this value stream is working well or not? Okay. Basically, what are the greens and the reds, right? So what are the failure points? So we need to have measures that shows us how things are working well or things are going wrong or about to go wrong, so we can take actions, right? So we have to define that. So part of that is we sit down with our strategic customers and we define key performance indicators for that value chain, okay? And we'll do it in two levels. Some of them are the level 1 KPIs, which are the best, most important 5 or 6. You don't want to have too many of those. The 5 or 6 top level 1 KPIs. And then we look at operational metrics, which kind of drive those KPIs. Okay, what are the metrics that have an impact on those KPIs? You can call them as leading indicators as well. You want to focus on the leading indicators, which kind of eventually impact your KPIs. So we define that. We actually have our teams go in and define what those are, what the data sources are, and how do you crunch those numbers and make sure we have alignment with the customer So when we are looking at a piece of information, everybody agrees that they are looking at the right piece of information, right? So we have the definition process that happens first. And then we go in and we want to totally automate it so that it's automated and it is live. So it's available for us and for our customers to see it anytime they want. And that will in turn drive business decisions. So that's kind of what when you say 10D, not to get too much into the details here, but 10D for us is what we call as 10 deliverables. For us, the 10 deliverables is the key fundamental aspects of focusing on operations, the key points. And one of that is KPIs and visual daily management. Okay. Under that KPI and visual daily management umbrella of 10 deliverables for Sunland is where we automate the KPIs. And the platform name we call for that is Customer Success Platform, where we bring in data sources like what's in our WMS system, what is in our timekeeping system, financial systems. And then we also hook in customers' data fields if it is required. So we can go in and say, for each customer, we define KPIs in what we call as SPQDC in this business: safety, productivity, quality, delivery, and cost.
So I was going to ask that actually.
Right. So we take SPQDC and we say safety metric is pretty much common across the board. And then we get in and we say productivity, quality, delivery, and cost. What are the key KPIs, right? What are the KPIs, right? Those are defined. And that's what you guys have helped automate for us from a Vitale perspective. And that's what we have with customers. So now I'll tell you sincerely, we don't have it everywhere. We are focusing on our large customers. It's a continuing initiative. You see more projects coming up. So as we grow as a company, we want to make sure that's an offering that we have in place for all of our large strategic customers. Right. And we have made some good progress in the last couple of years and more to come. And the goal is very simple: be proactive and not reactive, and have usable information and not data pollution. Because today with the advancement of technology, you got a bunch of spreadsheets and numbers all the time. And a lot of times it's pollution. You got to cut to the chase and say what ultimately matters to us, matters to our customers, and matters for that value stream is what we want to have readily available without crunching numbers. So people are not taking a week or two to prepare for a review meeting. It's available daily so we can make proactive decisions. That's the vision, Karthik. And I'll tell you honestly, it's a lofty vision. So we are working our way towards that. We are not there with all the customers, or we are not there to the level we want to be with all the customers. But what I can promise is that's a passion. When our guys come to work, IT or ops team, their passion is how do I deliver service to my customers, not only on the physical side of material flow, but on the information side. And that's a passion that we come to work with, and we continue to work on it.
Awesome, Hari. I'm just curious, Hari. So I know, a year ago when we were talking about KPI, OTIF was one of the key metric that people, leaders around the globe were looking at. Like, did that change because of COVID? What are the metrics that people are really worrying about? I know it might change across verticals, but I'm just curious, is there any uniformity throughout across the different verticals? And, in times of, did COVID actually change some of the metrics people are looking at?
So, well, interesting, really good question. But you asked a lot right there. It's actually two pieces to it. I would say you talked about OTIF, Karthik. OTIF is on time in full. So a lot of the companies, the measure that they look at, and that's probably one of the most tracked KPIs, I would say, in supply chain, and cutting across verticals and cutting across the value stream that you're dealing with, is are you shipping something on time, and is the order full, right? So, that's still a very important KPI across the board. Now, on time in full could mean different things for different value streams, right? If I'm shipping e-com to a consumer, on time is in full is, hey, I ordered 2 pieces of clothing. Do you have the right 2 pieces of clothing in the right color or whatever I ordered? And then did it reach the consumer on time? You could track it like that, where it is about delivery to the consumer. Some cases where we handle the shipping, where we are not focused on the transportation piece of it, we will say on-time delivery, meaning did it leave our building on time, so it can actually have a better chance of making to the customer on time, on time, right? So it might not be delivery point. It might be shipping from our building, not actual receipt at the consumer side. So depending on the value stream that we work with the customer, the definition slightly changes, but across supply chain globally, on time in full is probably the most important metric in terms of what many companies focus on.
Okay.
What COVID did to that? Look, with COVID, I'll tell you what, one of my customers said this term to me a few years ago, and I see a lot of people use the lingo in supply chain now. It's VUCA. VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? Highly technical term. But anyway, a lot of people are using it now. But there is a lot of volatility in supply chain now, uncertainty. I mean, you saw what happened with the blocking of the canal and how many ships got stuck and what that did to the global supply chain. At least in the US, you see the congestion on the West Coast ports and what does that do in driver shortage. And you have a political environment in different countries that is causing problems. COVID disrupted everything. I mean, you went from taking some things for granted to just doing the basic thing became the most, became big difficulty, right? So it kind of took us back to a situation where everyone was back to fundamentals, okay? Because it just disrupted the whole supply chain like you wouldn't believe, and you know that. So, but the KPI itself didn't change, but the challenges changed quite a bit. The VUCA becomes more pronounced. So now I see even more of discussion in the business environment on how do you reduce volatility and uncertainty, because COVID was one big event, but there has been a lot of smaller events like that. So I see a lot of conversations there, and a lot of companies are talking about nearshoring now. I know we are kind of moving away from the IT umbrella, but even sourcing strategies, where you source from, can we compress the supply chain is going to be global, and that's going to stay. But I think we're going to see companies kind of look at their sourcing strategies differently, their manufacturing strategies differently, and speed to consumer. How do you impact that? Those are the conversations that we are seeing. But OTIF took a big hit, we can say that, during COVID. And one more phenomena that we saw during COVID was the order types. I know e-com was there. Every year there was a growth of e-com percentage where people were going more online ordering than going to the stores. That completely changed. There were businesses we had where we used to process e-com as 5 or 10% of the volume, and 80-90% might have been retail through the stores. Completely flipped on the head. You see that those businesses go to 50-60% e-com because you just had this where people were forced to go e-com for their own safety. Now all of that, is it going to remain the same? I don't know. Some of it might fall back, but some of it is changed for sure. So that's posing new challenges on how we measure too, because a lot of our order types are now smaller orders, but more orders going to customers, consumers directly. So that's impacted the how do you look at on time in full to the supply chain? The value stream itself has changed.
Right.
So with COVID, that's what I would say has been the big impact is having disruptions on the most basic needs of a supply chain, and the change of order type predominantly from retail to e-com. There has been a major shift, and some of it is not going to go back.
Got it. Awesome. Hari, so I mean, this is not related to supply chain. What is your thought on working remotely, working from home? I know people on the floor don't have an option, but when it comes to IT, I'm just curious to get your thoughts as well. Because, I kind of get mixed signals everywhere. Some people prefer working out of home, or even some of the CEOs want people to work out of home. I'm just curious on where you stand.
Look,
for IT, that is.
No, from IT or operations, right? You're talking to an operations person here in logistics, but yes, look, one of the biggest things was me and my wife will have this conversation about so many people working from home and all the neighbors working from home through COVID. Like, why do you have to go in and do your stuff? Why can't you do it from remote? Look, jokes apart, right? Definitely a big shift has happened in terms of people working from home where it is possible, right? In our profession, our major, see, okay, so let me put this way to you. Everybody was talking about work from home and they were still ordering stuff and they're getting stuff delivered to them like next day or 2-day shipping, right? Somebody has to go to work to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the profession that we are in, right? Because
Unfortunately, it's
manufacturing
Hari.
companies, yeah, well, that's logistics. You see people bringing packages to your house. There's a whole operations or set of operations behind that. Right. Somebody's making the product. It is going to make it to some sort of a distribution center or a warehousing environment, kind of like what we run. There is order processing that is happening. And then there is transportation, and there is last mile delivery, and then it reaches your home. So you probably had like, a bunch of people touch that product before it ever got to you, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a whole set of that's where the appreciation of the supply chain is in the headline news now with COVID and the vaccines. For the first time, it's gone from people saying, what do you do? Moving products, to now that's been a mainstream conversation, right? Because that's so important and everybody is starting to see it. So in our business, Karthik, there is majority of the work happens at the site level, assembling those orders and shipping them. So that part of the workforce obviously have to come in. So we worked every day through COVID with a lot of precautions to keep our people safe. But ultimately, we see that as a service. Our workforce saw that as a service because we are helping more people stay at home because of what we were doing. So when we talked to our workforce, we talked about how they are servicing others by doing this. So part of that is certain part of the workforce have to be at the work center. So a lot of the leaders, we come in because that's the responsibility, because our teams are at work and we are at work too. But as a company, we have tried to also take those jobs that can be from home, and we try to encourage that because we don't need to take unnecessary risk, especially during the pandemic. So we have had, functions like payroll or finance or some of the IT functions where things could be remote. We encourage that being remote. But there is a certain portion of the work for us that needs to happen here. You ask my take on it. I think we're going to see more of it. And there are going to be challenges. I know you have the same challenges, right? You're also contemplating being a full IT shop. You are still thinking, should I bring people in or should I let them work from remote? I think we got to probably do a bit of both. And the key is when they are remote, how do you still keep the team connected? Because it's logistics is a full contact team sport. So we want to make sure that the team dynamics is there. How do you keep that going even when people are remote is a major conversation that we are having. But a portion of our business is on site. There's no other way to do it.
Got it. Makes sense.
So what do you think about that, Karthik? What do you mean? I'm just curious as a technology person with what you do. You're servicing customers in different parts of the globe, sitting in India, right? So how do you deal that with your team? What is your take on it?
I think one thing I've heard is that we are seeing increased attrition rates even in the IT industry, especially here. I was speaking to another friend. So it's easy for you to fire people and easy for people to leave you. So that's the one downside of it. The other thing is the people who are familiar with your company's culture and they're already part of the core group. It's easy to work with them remotely. There's no issue there. But when you recruit freshers and they have no idea about your culture, no idea about these things could be communicated remotely. But I definitely feel it has its limits. We've been a social animal for thousands and thousands of years, and there was a study that said people are rude over chats and emails, and they continue to be rude when they get back to work. So I found that interesting, and basically the point is, especially for people who are new to your company, it's kind of tough to bring them into the core. I think that's a problem to be solved for sure. Let's see how this all pans out. Anyway, Hari, I wanted to understand.
I'm glad not to stick to that topic for a little longer, but I do like what you said because I think culture is important.
Oh yeah.
I think you guys are a growth company. We are a growth company. The one thing that we kind of contend with on a daily basis is how do you grow and still protect your culture? For our culture, so that's an important conversation that we have all the time. So, and that is getting more complex with some kind of teams being more remote. But with the global supply chain, you always have a portion of you're dealing with people in different places. That's always there. But from an execution perspective, as a company, as you grow, we try to talk about how to protect culture in a more of a virtual environment. is a constant discussion that we have.
Hari, one last question on the same topic, because you guys are a much bigger company. What is the feedback you're getting from employees who are working from home? So do they like it, or they feel lonely, they want to come back to work? I mean, what are you guys seeing? I'm just curious.
Look, honestly, with our teams, feedback from our teams, talking to friends and colleagues in other places too, customers, I have got mixed feedback. Some people like it. They where their job could be virtual, they like it. They are like, look, I'm cutting down on travel, I'm cutting down on commute. I got more time to focus on what I need to accomplish. So there is some real positive feedback there. And I'm also listening to mixed feedback from others saying that I don't know when things start and when things end.
Right.
I probably kind of keep going at it because, work is right there, home is right there. Some of them talk about distraction, especially with COVID, with some kids not being able to go to school. They talk about distraction and not being able to be productive. But I've also heard people talk about the fact that they miss the camaraderie, they miss the fun of going out to lunch with someone and being able to meet someone and spend some time and have that relationship building. So I have had a mixed feedback, Karthik. It's, to be honest with you, it's hard to say, but I agree with you on one thing. We are all social beings, right? And I don't know if that's ever going to change. And I do agree with you that with the more virtual and less in-person interaction, you got to be careful of not hiding behind your computer screen or emails and still focusing on that relation. Everything happens on a relationship, right? Relationship is so important in business.
Yeah.
And I think more coaching on that is needed. You hit the nail on the head in terms of not getting rude or hiding behind a smoke screen, and still being real, because you're still dealing with real people. But I've had mixed feedback, Karthik, from people.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Okay, moving back to IT. So can you lay this out for us? So if I come to Sunland, I know there's the operation portion of getting a project up and running, and then there's this IT side. Could you walk us through the process? What is step 1? What is step 2? What is step 3? And so on. So how do you set us up? And could you first address that, and we can probably move on to the kind of services you guys offer, the IT services you offer for a typical customer.
Got you. So we talked about the verticals that we work in and type of businesses we do, right? So it's basically, you're talking about onboarding of a particular value stream, okay? Might be it's a new location, we are starting up a DC or we're starting up a plant, warehouse, or a distribution center that supports a plant, might be that's manufacturing something. In fact, we launched recently a project where 300 people operation supporting a big manufacturing plant. That's a value stream, right? We launched one more on the West Coast where it is shipping to other businesses and shipping to consumers, right? So you got different types of setups. So we already talked about that. So each one of that is a new startup. Either you are starting up a brand new operation, new team members, new systems implementation, and new processes, or in some cases in this business, we go and take over what a competition is doing, or sometimes an operation that the customer is running that they are now outsourcing, because some customers believe, a lot of them believe that their core competency might be manufacturing or sales or marketing. They want to outsource the logistics supply chain to someone like us. That's our core competency.
Yeah.
So we have businesses come to us like 2 or 3 different ways, brand new, everything, transition from a competitor, or we are transitioning from a customer run operation. In any one of those, there is impact on process. So basically we go through 3 areas. Okay. We say team, process, and technology. So we say we have to take actions on 3 aspects of our management system: team, process, technology, in that order. And then the results of our action will drive customer value and financial performance to us. So I would say that we onboard businesses based on our management system. So Sunland management system really, again, is inputs in 3 areas of team, process, technology. How do you drive customer value as a result? How do you drive financial value to us and to our customers as a result? So 2 areas of results. So, and in that sequence too, So so basically it starts with mapping out the customer requirement. We do what we call as advanced quality planning. Once we, let's say we are winning that operation, we submit whatever RFP or whatnot, and we are probably going to be selected. At that point, we make sure we have a planning session with our customer. And that should include, we don't see operations and IT separately, Karthik. You have been on planning sessions with us and your team has been there. So it's all about the process. It's all about what we are trying to get done, right? So we have to sit down with the customer, focus their ops team, their IT team, their customer service, their finance, HR might be, same thing on our side. And we are planning out on what is this value stream and what are we trying to accomplish? Because a lot of times the operations that we start up has a huge impact on our customers' business. You take a building that supports a plant which has got a couple thousand people and you have problems, then you're impacting their production activity, right? Or you're onboarding something that is shipping to end consumers and there is problems, then you are directly impacting sales for a customer. So we have the planning it's all about it. So advanced quality planning, you map out all the processes starting to end of that value stream with both teams, all functions within those two companies in the room. We want to map it out. We call that as a detailed process mapping or a detailed value stream session, right? We map the whole thing out. It talks about the material flow, and then it talks about information flow, which is where you guys have helped us. So the information flow and material flow, both are important. We map the whole playbook. That's the first step that happens. Then we determine what are the resourcing needs for that. Resourcing needs could be the startup team, which is going in one-time activity for a few months, getting it set up and stabilizing it. And then the operations team to run it. So we have an operations team defined, we have a startup team defined, and the startup team will have people from safety, operations, IT, quality, engineering. So you have all these different kind of human resources. You got all of those different functions represented in a startup team. So then we start planning on activities, the project plan, like any project. What are the details? What are the critical milestone dates? And in our case, like we talked about, we want IT to be fast, not to be slow, right?
Right.
How do you, and there what we plan is, what do you do in the starting? Because the approach in a complex startup like this is also not to boil the ocean on day one. You want to boil a pot of water, right? You want to have clear set of scopes and a very simplistic approach to the initial go live, because usually we are talking about a lot of people. And you're talking about culture change, you're talking about process change and training. So we take it simple in the starting, make sure we do certain things well, and make sure it is stable. Once the operation is stable, then we want to kind of get into a continuous improvement mode. And the key conversation that we have is how soon can we get from stability to a mode of continuous improvement? That's our measure of success. Okay. Mm-hmm. If the quicker we can get into a CI mode means it was a good startup and it is stable quickly. So that's how we measure our success too. So to answer your question, you start with the planning session, then you have the right team around it, because without 80% of the success depends on people, depends on our team members, and 20% on process and technology is what we say. Get the right people in place, right? Startup and operations wise, then the clear definition of process of what needs to happen, and KPIs. We talked about that already. KPIs will tell us what success looks like. Because when you start an initiative like that, a lot of things are going on, a lot of noise levels, right? Ultimately, you want to see what does success look like. We need to define that. That's where our KPIs come into play. So we get the team in place, process working is more stable. Initially, our technology kind of implementation would be to make it stable. Then quickly, we will start talking about, like you have seen, how can we bring value with technology, okay? So there's a certain base technology needed to just do stuff, right? And then there is more that you will do to get visibility to the customer and value to customer. So first we get to stability, then we talk about the value portion of it. So not to get too detailed on it, that's kind of our approach. And having a clear definition of success is important for us. And the time frame it takes from going from stability to continuous improvement is important. And then the other aspect, like in any startup, especially where we have a huge impact on customer, we always talk about contingency plans, FEMA, you want to make sure you're looking at your failure points and what are your backup plans in case something goes wrong, because in a startup this magnitude, something is bound to go wrong. Okay, let's try to identify what those failure points could be, and can we have contingency plans built around it? And sometimes you have to use contingency plans, So, that's what I would say in terms of how we approach a startup from our side. But ops and IT for us is highly tied together, because IT for us is an enabler that drives value to the material flow and value to the customer. As long as people can figure that out, you don't have a competition of ops or IT or whatever. For us, it's all the same. What are we trying to accomplish in this value stream? If you can break that paradigm, then I think success will be huge.
Right. Hari, just to summarize, so we have the AQP, we clearly define the process. And I'm sure the ops team will take care of what needs to be implemented from there. From an IT point of view, if I understand correctly, the first thing that you guys do is you use your own WMS. That's right.
Well,
it depends on the situation.
Right. In our WMS, meaning, in this case, you don't want to, today there is Microsoft Word. You don't want to go create a new Microsoft Word. There is no value, right? You use Microsoft Word. So same thing with us. We use a tier 1 WMS called Infor. I have used that for the last 20 years or so. So Infor is our deployment. And as you know, our approach is no customization of base code. Okay. So when upgrades happen, we are not worried about it. So we don't customize Infor, but rather what we do, is if there are value add stuff that needs to go on top of Infor, we are building additional components which are value add products which interact with that system. But a lot of times our deployment is Infor as a tier 1 WMS can give us 90 to 95% of what we need. The remaining 5 to 10%, we build custom products that will actually integrate with our system, and there's an integration there, as you've seen last.
Yeah. And then I think if I understand correctly, the next the final piece would be integration with your customers, trading partners. So where EDIs come in and go out. So basically, as a customer, if I come to Sunland, as far as IT is concerned, I can expect you guys to give me visibility, through the customer success platform, help us with the EDI integrations, and then since you guys use Infor, I don't have to worry about WMS either. So is that a good summary of what happens from an IT point of view?
Yeah, I mean, from an IT perspective, Karthik, you got it. I think one thing, and I know you are also really focused on integration between business partners, right? I think the key is it's global. There is multiple trading partners in any supply chain, right? So we got to hook people up, right? That integration component is so key. And I know we have been working on EDI projects from an integration perspective. Now we are more kind of going towards the APIs and more advancement in linking up business partners, right? And now with blockchain too. So we want to continuously kind of work with partners like you, and with our investment in our IT team, we want to continuously innovate on what that integration looks like. Because truth be told, that's where people get stuck. That integration sometimes takes long, or it doesn't work the way it was supposed to work. And we are working on the format still, right? With XML, or you're doing X12, or you're doing different formats, right? You got all these formats, and everybody use them differently. They interpret the same thing differently, right? So you know how that works. So the key is, how do you link up our customers to us, and might be other trading partners or might be suppliers on that value chain? I think that's a key portion of success in these projects, is the data going back and forth between different business partners. And that's an area that we are constantly striving to make it painless for our customers, because a lot of customers experience pain in that area. Basically cutting down to the chase of what really needs to go back and forth in the right format, and then coming up with proactive alerts when something goes wrong there. I think integration is a key portion of being successful, and that's a constant area where the industry has to go through a lot of change, because a lot of companies still use a pretty old technology from that perspective, and the challenges there, and that's a constant work in progress.
Right. So, Hari, could you please go ahead. You had some.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you're right. So from an IT side of it, its integration is key. Then what do you do to operate that particular operation? That's where the WMS systems or whatnot come into play. That's the operations piece of it. And then the third portion of it is the visibility portion of it. So I would say integration, like the manufacturing companies focused on their ERP system or assembly systems. We focus on the warehouse management system in our building. labor management, yard management, whatever the case might be. What does that operation needs to run? And then the third and the most important component for our customers is, well, yeah, you got all of those in place. I run my supply chain. Now what? Now what is the visibility and the value? So what can you do with those systems?
Right.
So using the systems to just run operations, I would say, is bread and butter. You're going to have that.
Yeah.
And what comes as a result is, how can I be able to make decisions quickly? How can I change things quickly? How do I anticipate problems quickly? That's kind of where the value actually comes out. Just running a system and running WMS and integrating people, though it might be technical, that's just needed. What happens after that is, a lot of people stop in our business with that. But we want to go to the next step and say, what does that mean in terms of value to our customers?
Yeah, I know there are cases where you guys went ahead and built even custom software solutions, right? We taking the returns program as an example, we wrote a return software on top of Info. I know that's one of your kind of biggest operations. There's also robotics involved. Could you kind of walk us through what you do there in the returns operation? And I know that you spoke about the importance on focusing on returns, return operations, from a Sunland point of view as well. So could you talk about that particular project, Hari?
Sure. Look, with advent of e-com to consumers, people return stuff. I mean, returns was always there, Karthik. Returns was always there in the sense you buy something and you go return, right? Because you don't need it, or it was broken, or the quality is not good, or you just didn't like it, and you shouldn't have brought it in the first place. People go return, right? But now that's just gone up as a steep curve, because a lot of people buy 2 or 3 things to try out which one they like, and then they return. It's just what is happening now. So the percentage of returns have gone up exponentially. And so some of the major retailers, right, that's they can just get the returns back. What do you do with it now? Because it's hard to sell it, might be on first quality sometimes you can, but then sometimes you might have to sell it at a lower price. So there is a value stream there for them to say, okay, how do I maximize my value out of what got returned? Okay, so we do some returns work with we actually collaborate with C.H. Robinson, who's a big transportation company in the US, right? And then we service a couple of programs for Walmart and Target through a company called B-Stock. B-Stock really sells product at the secondary value. So yeah, we built a software tool for that, because the big game there is you get the products. For a big retailer like Walmart or Target, you're talking about categories now, because returns go into a store, they all get mixed up. Okay. Yeah. So now you're going to have to sort these products by, is it men's clothing, women's clothing, kids? Is it furniture? Is it electronics? Is it food? Whatnot, right? Or it's a home improvement. You're going to have to split down the value of those or the category of those products. And then you can start grading them in different quality. Is it first quality? Is it second quality? Is it damaged? So based on that, the price point might change too. So products come in, we sort them into categories, then we sort them into quality levels. And then we might be building out a palette or a product set, and we'll say, okay, the retail value of this might be $5,000 for this palette, right? Now it goes on an auction. So people try to buy that retail value. Might be they pay $3,000 for it. Might be they pay $2,000 for it. But what we find is the value of the returns actually goes up when whoever is buying is able to see the retail value of it. If I just sell a pallet with what is in there, you get lesser price. But then if you publish the retail value and then you try to break them down into categories, because a lot of the secondary buyers, they just buy stuff. It's kind of like I won't say gambling, but they just buy it at a low price. But a lot of times it's with very less information, and then they try to sell it for more. Okay. So the more information you have and the more photographs you have, then some of these people who take this on auction pay a better price. So if you go to B-Stock's website, that's what they do. They kind of show you the more information they have for the channels with some retailers, the more price they command. So the whole reverse portion of where we are involved is with how do you maximize the value of what is getting sold on the seconds. And so we needed some software solutions that makes it, do it better and easier. So, that's where we built that cool touchscreen solution with, with our workstations where people come in, they boom, hit the category, the quality, and then they sort products, right?
Right.
So that's kind of been very helpful. And that's a really good example of a certain need and how can technology make that process better,
right,
and make it more efficient, because because we add cost to that process. So Sunland processes it. We are adding $1 or so many cents per unit because we are processing it. There is a cost to it. So there is returns already, and I'm adding a cost to it. So the lower I keep the cost, the better return for the retailer or for the customers that we are servicing. That's where IT comes in and help us to do the process efficiently.
Right. Hari, where do the robotics come in here? I mean, is it active on the returns program now?
Not on the returns program, but our mobile automated, so you call automated mobile robotics. So what we are trying to do there is a couple of things. One, using of mobile robotics for the picking and fulfillment on the forward supply chain. And then actually, I'll tell you one thing that's been really exciting recently is we have a really good company that we have partnered with. Okay, they are a tech venture, Vimon Robotics. Okay, Vimon is the name of the company. A great company to work with. We have a solid partnership with them, and we are rolling out drones for cycle counting. Right, we have 2 implementations in progress. So we use drones in the building to cycle count on racks.
Oh wow!
And then we also mount basically computer vision technology. So we have also it's basically computer eyes, which are high resolution. They keep taking pictures and videos at a high quality. So
is this a Trinitary? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's actually in one of the locations here in South Carolina too, in a Hampton Park location.
Okay.
And we are rolling it out for a different customer too at this point, where on the forklifts and material handling equipment, you have computer eyes, basically vision. So they read everything you do. So you know how with the best system in the world, you can do the wrong moves, right? You might take a product and you say, I'm going into this storage location. You scan that, but you could be putting it into a wrong place. Because at some point, there is human element to everything, right? But with the computer vision, you can say, okay, this actually went into the wrong place. In the system, in WMS, we said it's going in here to location A123, but actually it went into B123. So we can immediately identify whether something is right or wrong. Actually, right now, we are in a process of putting the, what we call as a computer vision quality gate for one of our DCs that support a plant. Whereas the pallets go through that, it will read the totes on the pallet and tell us is the right totes going out of the building that is supposed to be on that pallet. So it's not RFID, but it is computer vision. So drones for cycle counting, the quality gate through which you pass a pallet, the computer vision can read and tell you if the right stuff is going on based on reading the labels on the product, on those totes. And then as you put it on material handling equipment, it is constantly tracking where the person is putting or taking the product from, so we can reduce shipping errors. So those are some of the things that we are working on, Karthik. And as we get more projects going, the goal is all about bringing value to customers. And Vimon has been a great company to partner with. A shout out to KG, who's the CEO for that company that we work with. So
awesome. I think we have 15 more minutes left. One of the questions I had for you was, what are the unsolved problems in supply chain that could be solved by IT? I know you were really into end-to-end visibility, right? That was you mentioned that's been a problem to solve for the last at least 20 years in supply chain. So could you talk about what would actually excite you, and what would you advise all the IT folks out there who's looking to start a venture that's focused on supply chain tech?
Wow, that's a loaded question, and I don't think any one person can answer that well. I think it's a huge field that we practice, and there is so much moving pieces. I'll tell you, constant conversation coming into this as an young engineer, now being part of running a business, as a business person. I have heard that for the last 2 decades is just constantly visibility in supply chain. It's a topic that never goes away. any conference you go to or anything, anywhere you go on the supply chain topic, people always talk about visibility, right? But have we really solved that problem? Okay, I don't think so, because as supply chains are global and extended, everyone deals with their system. And for some reason, Karthik, I know we have joked about this before, every system in the supply chain is 3 letters. It's ERP or WMS or TMS, Transportation Management System, or it is Order Management System, OMS, YMS, Yard Management System. Everything is 3 letters, but there's a bunch of these systems out there. Different trading partners are using to satisfy a value stream, right? How does visibility come in there? I'm running a DC, I know what I'm doing here. Somebody's running a plant, they know what they're doing there. I'm buying stuff from someone, they know what they're shipping, but they are linked from an EDI perspective, might be to execute on operations, but you rarely find like a dashboard of what's going on across the supply chain. It takes a lot of work to get there. What you see is what we do in silos. Even though these systems are connected, they are connected very, I would say, specifically to execute business functions, not to give visibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is not a dashboard that sits on top that says, how am I doing across the board? What is going to happen in this country? How is that going to impact me 45 days later? Okay. What is going on with this transportation mode? How is that going to impact me 60 days from now? Usually by the time we find out, it's too late. But if we find out when that thing is going wrong, then you have more time to react. It's all about reaction time. So what I think I will tell IT professionals out there is solve the problem of supply chain visibility. And that goes back to our previous conversation of integration, right?
Right. Yeah.
If integration is always going to be complex and it is going to take 90 days to 120 days to complete a project, this is never going to be easy. If we go into advancement in integration, where there is innovation on integration, and you can link up systems that talk to each other much more faster, like I'm picking up the phone and calling you, if the systems can talk quickly, and we can solve this problem much faster. So really the end vision is how do you kind of come up with supply chain visibility? And part of that is innovation on integration, because you're going to basically have to link up multiple disparate systems to a common platform to kind of get the view that you want. So ultimately, what is happening, 3 months, 6 months ahead of time. How is that going to impact a process later on down the road? That's where the money is at right now. And that's where if people can focus, if whoever focuses there is probably going to win. And like, we both share a common passion there, right? So, so we want to make sure that we solve we at least, nobody's going to solve it fully, but can we bring products out, or can we bring platforms out that can solve it? And that's kind of where I think the real dollars are in the future. And that's also where the value is also. That's just my take on it, okay? For whatever it is worth.
Got it. Yeah, so, final question, Hari. So what is the next big focus for you guys at Sunland? And how big are you guys currently?
Karthik, we are growing. I will say that, and we, now we went from Sunland started out as a kind of like a regional provider in the southeast of the US. We are national now. We kind of grew on the East Coast. Now we are having a national footprint. Our verticals are growing. Consumer retail is growing really well. Industrial vertical is growing well, where we support manufacturing plants. Those type of inbound to plant operations, we see a lot of growth. Chemicals, we are one of the few companies who also do a lot of hazardous chemicals as well. So that portion of the business is growing. We are into food. We do a decent amount of work with, for example, a company called Body Armor here, where they supply health drinks to the market. We have some bigger brand names, like we work with Panasonic, Delta Faucet on the industrial side, Zern, a lot of companies that we work with. I'm probably shouldn't gone down the road of giving you names, because I'm sure I'm not mentioning a lot of names, but the point here being we're growing, and our focus is as a company having that customer-centric culture as we grow, okay, to make sure our teams are focused on solving problems for our customers. So we have done a lot of, our culture is about being lean, is a lean culture. Part of lean culture is how do you maximize value and everybody says maximize value at the total lowest possible cost. I kind of struggle with the lowest cost because lowest cost sometimes is not good quality. I want to say, what is the maximum customer value at the optimal cost? Okay, so maximum customer value at the optimal cost. That's kind of what we are trying to create. So we want our teams coming in every day solving problems in the supply chain. We should build a company of problem solvers who are solving supply chain problems to maximize value for our customers. And a lot of that would also be on the technology side, Karthik, like we talked about. So part of our focus is protect that culture of solving problems for customers as we grow, and being customer centric, because we are end of the day in the service industry. We don't make any products, right? Because we are in the service industry. And really what we can do from a technology, from an enabler perspective. And we just talked about supply chain visibility. I think that's really where our focus is too, just like what you guys are trying to do. We really want to start adding more value and come out with more tools and products and platforms for customers to drive more visibility across their extended value chain, not just in the portion where we operate. So basically more on the IT side of the equation is kind of where our focus is too. And a lot of innovation on just optimizing costs in the operations we run, because some of these operations have a lot of cost basis to it. So the innovation needs to come daily on how we effectively operate, and that will drive down the cost per unit for our customers. Whether it is supplying to a plant or to a consumer or to a different business, whatever the case might be of that value stream, really trying to drive the cost down in our operations. And that comes with the innovations, with the material handling technology, with the operations. How do we do it more effectively? With engineering, what do we do differently? So that's for Sunland as a focus, is drive more value to customers, organically grow with the larger customers and do more with them. And then really try to focus on visibility from an IT perspective. So the fundamentals are the same. We want to just do more work on the same topics that we have discussed. And how do we add bandwidth on our side, the right kind of team that can make those things happen, and how do we partner with the right partners like you guys? And there's an ecosystem, ecosystem of us, our teams and our partners and our customers, and how do you protect and you grow that ecosystem is kind of what we are focused on.
Got it. Lovely.
And all of that, Karthik, and I have to say this with keeping everybody safe, because this pandemic, we all said it'll go away in 6 months, 1 year, whatever. Here, 2 years later, we are still there. And now now we stop saying COVID, we are saying Omicron. So that's not, I don't know when it is going to end, right? And probably it is here to stay. So really with our line of business, with people on physical work, and we are getting people to work every day, our biggest focus right now is also to do these things and keeping our people safe. And that's a very important focus that we have, because we don't have the luxury of doing this from home, So safety on top of all of it is a very big priority for us at this point.
Right. Okay, we are at the end of this. I really enjoyed listening to you again. This has been a long time due, so I'm very glad it happened finally. And as usual, Hari, really engaging conversation. Learned a lot listening to you. And thank you so much for doing this. Hopefully we do this soon again. Okay.
Hi, I enjoyed it a lot. And I think the key portion of it, like we talked about ecosystem community, right? I think this supply chain community is a tight-knit community. Having these conversations and seeing what others are doing and engaging in these kind of forums is very helpful. I know we learn from it.
Sure.
Maybe others might have a little bit to pick up from this conversation. Absolutely do more of this, Karthik, and I appreciate you taking the initiative on setting this up. Okay. And
thank you, Hari.
You're going to be here in the next couple of weeks, so hopefully we can meet face to face.
Definitely, we'll do one face to face.
Safe travels.
Yeah, thank you, Hari. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.